Hi there. It's April the 30th, and today we're continuing our journey through the book of Judges, Jephthah in Hebrew, meaning those who set to rights, those who right wise, and we are in chapters 11 and 12 today. We left the story of the Judges, we left the story of Israel with them facing the Ammonites at the end of chapter 10 and needing someone to come and lead them. At the beginning of chapter 11, we are introduced to the character of, we call him in English Jephthah, but in Hebrew he's called Jephthah. And Jephthah is someone who's actually a bit of an outsider. He's the son of he's the illegitimate son by a prostitute of one of the Gileadites, and he is rejected by his brothers and saying, you don't have any inheritance with us. So he's a bit of an outcast, and he gathers people to him. But then when they face this trouble, these Ammonites, they ask him to come and lead them. And he says, well, why would you ask me to come and lead you? I've been thrown out. And they say, well, we need you to come. So then the Ammonites come, and there's a standoff between Israel and Ammon, and Jephthah agrees to lead the Israelites, and he challenges the Ammonites, says, why are you coming to war against us? Ammon says, well, you've taken our lands. That is, he's referring to the lands east of the Jordan that Reuben, Gad and Manasseh possessed, which together tend to be called Gilad or Gilead. And so the Ammonites, who come from further south, Moab, are saying, why have you taken the lands that we actually possessed? Jephthah says, we haven't taken the lands, God gave them to us because you refused to help us when we were passing through. Nonetheless, there is a battle, and Jephthah unfortunately makes a very rash vow. Now, one of the things we learn from these passages is that making vows, certainly in the Israelite mind, is a very heavy burden, and anything that you vow has to be fulfilled. And Jephthah unfortunately vows that the first thing that comes out of his home when he comes back home will be sacrificed to the Lord as a burnt offering. He doesn't really think about what he's doing. It's a bit of a careless vow. But he goes forward and they defeat the Ammonites. It says the Spirit of the Lord comes upon Jephthah and anoints him for this task of overcoming the Ammonites and pushing them back. So here's one of these occasions where the Spirit of God comes and empowers a person to do this. Doesn't live permanently, but empowers them for a certain task. And so the Ammonites are overcome. Jephthah comes home, and horrifically, as he comes home, the first thing to come out to greet him is his daughter dancing and singing and celebrating his victory. And it's a very troublesome passage, this, because Jephthah says that he has to complete the vow he's made to the Lord and how terrible it is. And his daughter actually concurs with him and says, well, if you've promised the Lord this, I have to die, but first let me go and mourn with my friends. And then after 2 months she comes back, and it seems from the scriptures that Jephthah sacrifices her. Now, we know from the story earlier on, the story of Abraham and Isaac, that God does not require child sacrifice. And it may be that this child sacrifice, this sacrifice of a daughter that Jephthah felt he had to make, was because of the influence of the Canaanite tribes around them who did practice child sacrifice. It's certainly not something that God would have wanted. It also indicates the mixture that is happening and the serious theological mess that is going on among the tribes at this time as they flip from one set of gods back to the true God. So in the next chapter, in chapter 12, we see even more of this this really difficult situation that's occurring between the tribes. Ephraim, who lives on the west of Jordan, Ephraim inhabits the land west of Jordan, comes to Jephthah and has a dispute with them because the tribes of the east of Jordan didn't call on Ephraim, who's on the west of the Jordan, to come and help them when they were defeating the Ammonites. And there's a jealousy here. Actually, the Ephraimites have done this before. They've done this with Gideon before and complained to Gideon that they've not been involved. So the Ephraimites seem to be a bit of a troublesome clan. However, Jephthah, he takes great exception to this, and the Ephraimites actually attack the Gileadites, but the Gileadites overcome them and push them back. But a terrible thing happens at the River Jordan. As the Ephraimites are trying to flee back west of the Jordan, they're captured by the Gileadites, who are in the east of the Jordan, and as they capture them, they will ask them, "Are you Ephraimites? Are you part of our enemies?" And the Ephraimites are forced to say a word. Now it seems that the tribes that lived on the west of the Jordan weren't able to say the word shibboleth, which means an ear of corn. So they tested them on their language by saying, say shibboleth, and if they said sibboleth, couldn't say the sh on the front, then they realized they were Ephraimites and they killed them. And thousands of Ephraimites are killed at the fords of Jordan because they couldn't say shibboleth, they could only say sibboleth. So the upshot of this is that we see that there's real ferment in the midst of the children of Israel, and there's real distress, there's real disturbance going on. Things are not going at all well. And chapter 12 ends with the account of there being three more judges, Ibzan, Elon and Avdon, which we don't know very much about. But things are not looking good for Israel, and it's all to do with the fact that they're not putting God number one at the top of their list of priorities. Something we should constantly be seeking to do, constantly seeking his face and resisting all other comers, all other rivals to his love. Have a very good April the 30th.